It was the silence that hurt most, because silence has a way of reminding you who's missing. Every morning, the ranch woke up the same way. Wind pushing dust across the yard, chickens clucking lazy, cattle shifting in the pen. And inside the cabin, too. Small girls whispering instead of laughing. Daniel stood on the porch with his tin mug of coffee, staring at the sunrise bleeding orange across the Arizona hills. Same sunrise he'd watched 1,000 times, but it didn't feel the same anymore. Nothing. Did not behind him, the cabin door creaked open. Soft footsteps. Mornin', Pa. He turned. Emily. 8 years old. Hair messy, barefoot, trying to be brave the way children do when they think grown-ups might break. Behind her was Sarah, 6, clutching that old rag doll her mama stitched years ago. The doll had one eye now, but Sarah still treated it like treasure. Daniel forced a smile. Mornin', girls. They stood close to him. Too close, like they were scared the world might snatch him away too if they didn't. Kids don't usually do that. Not unless they've already lost something or someone. Daniel swallowed hard. You hungry? They nodded. Of course they were. Kids are always hungry. The problem wasn't feeding them. The problem was everything else. Cooking. Cleaning. Laundry. Bantaging. Scraped knees. Brushing hair. Telling bedtime stories. The small things their mother used to do without anyone noticing. Funny thing about mothers, you don't realize they're holding the whole world together until they're gone. 3 months. It had been 3 months since Mary died. Fever. Fast. Cruel. By the time the doctor rode out, it was already too late. One day she was laughing by the stove. Next day she couldn't even sit up. Then nothing. Daniel still remembered the quiet after her last breath. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. He buried her under the cottonwood tree behind the barn. Girls cried so hard it sounded like their little hearts were tearing. He didn't cry then. Cold and single quotes T. Some men freeze instead. He'd been frozen ever since. Inside the cabin, chaos waited, dishes stacked, clothes half-washed, flour spilled on the table from Emily trying to bake bread by herself. Daniel rubbed his forehead. He could track cattle across stone. Shoot a coyote at 300 yards. Survive winter storms. But 2 little girls and a kitchen? That terrified him. Pa, Sarah whispered. He knelt. Yeah, honey. She hesitated, then asked the question that hit like a bullet. When Mama coming back? Daniel closed his eyes. Every time. Every single time it felt fresh. She ain't coming back, sweetheart. Sarah's lip trembled. But who gonna braid my hair? Daniel's throat tightened. He tried. God, he tried. But every braid he made looked like a bird built it. Emily stepped in quietly. I'll do it, Sarah. Too young to be responsible. Too young to act like a mother. But she did anyway. Daniel watched her tiny fingers struggling with the knots, and something inside him broke. Because kids shouldn't have to grow up that fast. Not because life decided to be cruel. Days blurred together. Daniel woke before sunrise, cooked burnt eggs, wrote fence lines, came back to crying. Arguments. Lonely nights. The house felt empty. Cold. Even when the fire burned. Mary used to sing while she worked. Little songs. Nothing fancy. But now the cabin felt like a church after a funeral. Every sound echoed. Even laughter felt wrong, like it didn't belong anymore. One afternoon, Daniel rode into town for supplies. Didn't want to, but flour doesn't magically appear. The town was small. Dusty. Wooden storefronts, same old faces. But today something felt different. A crowd gathered near the sheriff's office. Men talking loud. Spitting. Angry. Daniel tied his horse and walked closer. What's going on? He asked Hank Miller. Hank smirked. Caught ourselves an Apache woman. Daniel's stomach tightened. She steals something? Hank shrugged. Don't matter. Army brought her in with the others. Prisoners from some skirmish down south. Daniel glanced past him. And then he saw her. Chains. Hands bound. Clothes torn. Face dusty. But eyes. eyes sharp like mountain stone. Not scared, not begging. Just watching, like a wolf that refuses to bow. She stood alone in the cage wagon, everyone staring like she was some kind of animal. Kids throwing pebbles, men laughing. Daniel felt uncomfortable, didn't know why. He'd seen prisoners before. Seen worse, but something about this felt wrong. To cruel, to unnecessary. She dangerous? He asked quietly. Hank snorted. Apache's always dangerous. Daniel kept staring. She didn't look dangerous. She looked tired. Hungry. Human. Then he heard it. To small voices behind him. Pa. He turned. Emily and Sarah. They'd followed him from the general store. He frowned. Told you girls to stay put. But they weren't listening. They were staring at the wagon. At the woman. At the chains. Sarah whispered, "Why they got her tied up?" Daniel hesitated. "She's a prisoner." Emily tilted her head. "She's somebody's mama." The question hit harder than expected. Daniel looked back at the woman. For the first time, he noticed something small tied around her neck. A little beaded charm. Child-sized. Like something a kid would make for their mother. His chest tightened. "Maybe," he said. Sarah squeezed his hand. "They'd taken her away." "Yeah. Where?" Daniel didn't answer, because he knew. And it wasn't somewhere good. The girls stayed quiet, watching. The woman noticed them too. Their eyes met. Just for a second, something passed between them. Something soft, something sad. The woman's expression changed. Not fear. Not anger. But gentleness, like she used to look at children once. Like she remembered something. Then Sarah did something Daniel never expected. She let go of his hand. Walked closer. Daniel grabbed her. "Hey," but she whispered, "Pa, what?" And then she said the words that changed everything. "We need a mama." Daniel froze. Emily nodded slowly. "Yeah. Pa." Both girls looking at the chained Apache woman. "We need a mama." Time stopped. Town noise faded. Wind, quiet. Just those words echoing. "We need a mama. Not fancy. Not complicated. Just truth. Raw. Simple. Painful truth. And Daniel realized something. They weren't asking for Mary back. They knew that was impossible. They weren't asking for perfect. They were asking for someone. Anyone. To hold them. Cook for them. Tell them stories. Tuck them in. Someone who wasn't tired and broken like him. And for the first time, Daniel looked at that chained woman not as Apache, not as prisoner, but as a person. Maybe a mother. Maybe someone who'd lost everything to. And suddenly the world didn't look so black and white anymore. It looked human. Messy, complicated, and standing there in the dust, between his daughters and that wagon, Daniel Harper felt something shift deep inside his chest. Something dangerous. Something kind. Something that might cost him everything. Daniel couldn't stop looking at her. Didn't matter how loud the town got. Didn't matter how many men laughed or spat tobacco into the dirt. Didn't matter how many times he told himself to walk away. His eyes kept drifting back to that wagon. Back to those chains. Back to her. She stood straighter than any prisoner he'd ever seen. Not slumped, not crying. Just standing. Like dignity was the only thing they hadn't managed to steal. The late afternoon sun burned down hard, turning the metal cuffs on her wrists into little flashes of light. To tight. Daniel could see the red skin around them. Rope burns. Too. She'd fought at some point. Of course she had. Anybody would. But now she just watched the town quietly. Studying. Remembering. Like she refused to disappear. Pa. Emily tugged his sleeve again. "You staring." "I know." "Why?" Daniel didn't answer right away, because he didn't really know why. He just felt uneasy, like something wasn't sitting right inside his chest. Sarah whispered. She looked sad. Daniel swallowed. "Yeah, maybe." But sad wasn't the right word. It wasn't sadness in that woman's eyes. It was loss, deep loss, the kind Daniel recognized too well. The kind you only get when life rips something out of you and doesn't bother explaining why. The sheriff's office door slammed open. Sheriff Collins stepped out, big belly, grey mustache, always smelling like cheap whiskey and authority. He shouted, "All right, enough gawking. Army comes tomorrow morning. They'll take the prisoners south. Tomorrow. So soon." Daniel's stomach tightened. Tomorrow meant she'd disappear forever. Like Mary had, like so many others had, gone without a say, without a chance, without dignity. He looked down at his daughters, both staring at the wagon. Emily chewing, her lip. Sarah holding the rag doll tight against her chest. Then Sarah said something so small it almost got lost in the wind. She called, "Pa." Daniel blinked. "What? She ain't got no blanket." He looked again. She didn't. Just thin warm cloth, and the desert nights got mean after sunset. Cold enough to bite. "Pa, can we give her Mama's old shawl?" Sarah asked softly. Daniel's heart stopped. Mary's shawl, the one they kept folded on the chair, still smelled faintly like her. He almost said no. Almost. Because some things feel sacred and touchable. But then he looked at that wagon again. At the chains, and suddenly, keeping a shawl safe in a cabin felt selfish. Real selfish. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We can." He walked to the general store. Bought flour. Beans. Coffee. Normal things. But his mind wasn't there. His mind kept circling one thought. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. They'd take her. And that would be it. Finished. Over. Just another life erased. He hated how normal everyone acted. Like this was just business. Just another Tuesday. Hank Miller even laughed with someone about it. "Army'll teach 'em real quick." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Teach them what?" "How to suffer quietly. How to disappear." "Harper." He turned. Sheriff Collins was watching him. "You need something else?" Daniel hesitated, then walked closer, lowered his voice. "What they doing with her?" Collins shrugged. "Same as the rest. Prison transport. Maybe reservation. Maybe worse." "Worse?" Collins spat. "Depends how they behave." Daniel's chest burned. She hadn't done anything. Not here. Not now. She was just standing, breathing, existing, and somehow that was enough to chain her like a criminal. He surprised himself with the next question. What if someone wanted to take responsibility for her? Collins blinked. What? What if she had a place to stay? Work? Ranch? Sheriff stared like Daniel had just grown horns. "You serious? I'm a skin." Collins laughed. "Boy, you out of your mind. You want to bring an Apache into town? Into your home?" Daniel didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because suddenly the idea didn't feel crazy. It felt possible. "Daniel," Collins said slower, "people won't like it. People don't like lots of things. You got to. Little girls." "I know. You trust her." Daniel glanced toward the wagon. She was watching him, even from that distance, like she sensed the conversation, like she understood this moment mattered. Did he trust her? No, not exactly. But he trusted those eyes more than he trusted half the men standing in this town. "I trust my gut," he muttered. Collins sighed. "You'd be responsible. Anything happens, it's on you." "Fine. You sign papers. No army interference. But town ain't gonna protect you if folks get angry." Daniel nodded. "I ain't a skin M2. Long silence, then Collins shook his head. "You're a damn fool, Harper." "Probably. But Mary always said you had a soft heart that hit harder than anything. Mary. If she were here, what would she say?" He already knew. Mary never turned away hungry people, never judged by skin or tribe. She used to say, "Pain looks the same on everyone." Daniel swallowed. "She'd help her," he said quietly. Collins stared a moment longer, then muttered, "Come, sign." The pen felt heavier than any rifle he'd ever held. Just one signature, one name, and everything changes. Daniel Harper. He wrote it slow, like carving it into wood, because deep down he knew this wasn't just paperwork. This was a choice. A line in the sand. After today, nothing would be simple again. They opened the wagon. Chains clanked. She stepped down slowly, stiff, weak, but still proud. Collins unlocked the cuffs, metal falling away. With a dull thud, the marks on her wrists made Daniel's stomach twist, raw, bruised. She rubbed them gently, like reminding herself she could move again. For a second, she didn't look real, like freedom confused her, like she expected someone to yell stop. Nobody did. Collins pointed at Daniel. He's taken responsibility. She looked at Daniel, long, quiet, suspicious, smart, like she'd been betrayed before. Many times. Daniel didn't smile, didn't reach out, just nodded once, simple, respectful. Same way he'd approach a wild horse, gentle, patient, no sudden moves. You can come, he said softly. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She stepped closer, careful, every movement measured, like she was ready to run if needed. Emily and Sarah peeked from behind Daniel. Eyes wide, curious, not scared. Kids don't learn hate unless someone teaches them. They just see people. That's it, just people. Sarah whispered, "Hi." The woman blinked, then barely nodded, a tiny nod. But it felt huge. The walk back to the ranch felt longer than usual, sun dipping low, dust turning gold. Daniel walking ahead with the horse, the woman a few steps behind. Girls whispering, glancing. Back at her, Daniel could feel the town watching. Eyes burning into his back, judging, mocking. Maybe even planning. Didn't matter. He kept walking, one step at a time, towards something he didn't fully understand, but something that felt right. When the ranch came into view, she stopped, stared at the cabin. Smoke curling from the chimney. Chickens pecking the dirt. A simple home, not a cage. Not chains, just a place. Daniel noticed her breathing change, slower, careful, like hope hurt more than fear. He opened the gate, gestured inside. Home. The word slipped out without thinking. Home. He wasn't even sure why he said it. But once he did, it felt true. Behind him, Sarah tugged Emily's sleeve and whispered, "Maybe she stay." Emily nodded, then looked up at Daniel. "Pa, yeah. Is she gonna be our mama?" Daniel stopped walking, heart pounding. He didn't know, didn't even think that far. All he knew was one thing. Tonight, nobody would sleep in chains. Tonight, someone who'd lost everything would have a roof, and maybe, just maybe, this broken house might feel alive again. "Let's just see," he said softly, and they walked through the gate together. The first night felt strange. Stranger than any night Daniel Harper could remember. Not because of danger, not because of the cold, but because for the first time in months, the house didn't feel empty. And somehow, that scared him more than loneliness ever did. The Apache woman stood just inside the doorway, like a guest who didn't trust the floor, like the wood might disappear beneath her feet, like walls were traps. Daniel didn't blame her. After chains and cages, a warm cabin probably felt just as suspicious. Firelight flickered across her face, soft orange glow catching the dust in her hair. Her eyes moved constantly. Window, door, back wall, fire. Exit points, survival eyes. Daniel knew that look. He'd seen it in soldiers, in men who'd lived long near death. It was the look of someone who never truly rested. "You hungry?" he asked gently. She didn't understand. Of course not. He felt foolish. He grabbed a bowl, scooped beans into it. Held it out. She hesitated. Like food might cost something. Like kindness always came with a price. Daniel just set the bowl on the table and stepped back. "No. Tricks," he muttered. She watched him. Then slowly stepped forward, hands trembling just a little. Not from fear. From exhaustion. She ate slow. Careful. Like every bite mattered. Like this might be the last meal she ever saw. Emily and Sarah sat on the bench. STARING, not scared, just curious. Kids don't carry history the way adults do. They don't see enemies. They just see someone new. Sarah whispered, she eats like you, Pa. Daniel chuckled softly. Guess we both hungry. The woman glanced up at their voices, didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Sarah smiled at her. Big. Gap-toothed. Innocent. The kind of smile that melts walls. And for the first time, the woman's face softened. Just a little. Barely. But Daniel saw it. That tiny crack in the armor, like sunlight sneaking through clouds. Later, Emily disappeared into the bedroom, came back holding something folded. Mary's old shawl. Daniel froze. Sarah whispered, for her. Emily walked over slowly and held it out. The woman stared at the cloth, touched it carefully, like it might vanish. Soft wool, still smelling faintly like lavender soap, still carrying warmth from another life. She looked confused. Gift, Emily said softly, pressing it into her hands. Cold night. The woman didn't understand the words, but she understood kindness. She wrapped the shawl around her shoulders, closed her eyes for just a second, and Daniel swore. He saw tears. That night, Daniel made a bed near the fire for her. Extra blankets. Pillow. She refused at first. Tried to sit near the wall instead. Like prisoners do. Like comfort wasn't allowed. Daniel pointed again. Gentle. Firm. Sleep. She finally lay down, still half awake. Still watching, but resting. And Daniel realized something strange. He kept glancing over to make sure she was okay, like she was one of his own. Like if something happened to her, it would hurt the same way. Mary's death hurt. That thought confused him. How could you care about someone you just met? But maybe pain recognizes pain. Maybe that's enough. Morning came with smoke and sunlight. Daniel woke early like always, stepped outside with his coffee. Cold, air biting his lungs. But something felt different. He could hear movement inside. Dishes. Clinking. Soft footsteps. He frowned, walked back and stopped dead in the doorway. The woman was cooking. Not fancy, just eggs and bread. But steady. Confident. Like she'd done this 1,000 times. Like it was muscle memory. Like being a caretaker was stitched into her bones. The girls were sitting at the table watching her like she was magic. Sarah whispered, she fixed it, Pa. Emily added, didn't even burn nothing. Daniel stared at the food. Then at her. Then back at the food. How'd he stopped himself. Of course she knew how. Women everywhere cook. Feed. Care. Different languages. Same hands. Same hearts. Funny how men fight wars and pretend we're different, when life itself looks exactly the same in every home. He pointed to himself, Daniel, then pointed at the girls, Emily, Sarah, then gently pointed at her. She understood. After a moment, she touched her chest. Oponi. He repeated it. Oponi. She nodded. Small smile. Her name. Now she wasn't the Apache woman. She was a pony, a person, with a name, a history. A life, and somehow that made everything heavier. Because it's easier to hate strangers than people with names. Days started to form a rhythm. Daniel fixed fences. Oponi cleaned and cooked. Emily helped with water. Sarah followed Oponi everywhere like a shadow. At first, Oponi kept her distance, didn't touch, didn't get too close, like affection might be dangerous. But kids don't care about boundaries. Sarah would just grab her hand, or lean against her, or sit in her lap without asking. And every time, Oponi froze. Then slowly, she relaxed, like she remembered something she thought was gone forever. One afternoon, Daniel came back from the pasture and heard something he hadn't heard in months. Laughter. Real laughter. Not forced. Not polite. Free. He peeked inside. Oponi was trying to braid Emily's hair. Quick fingers. Neat. Perfect. Emily grinning. Sarah clapping like it was some grand show. Daniel leaned against the doorframe and just watched. His chest hurt. But in a good way. Like muscles waking up after years of sleep. Because this was what the house used to sound like. Before Mary got sick. Before grief hollowed everything out. For the first time, the cabin felt warm again, alive again, like it was breathing. But peace never stays long in places like this, because people talk, and towns love gossip more than anything. 3 days later, Hank Miller rode past the ranch slower than usual, staring to other riders with him. Watching, Daniel pretended not to notice, but he felt it. Eyes, judgment, suspicion. Word had spread. Harper brought an Apache into his house. Harper's gone soft. Harper's crazy. Some folks fear guns. Others fear kindness more, because kindness breaks the rules they've lived by. That evening, Daniel found hoofprints near the fence. Fresh to fresh. Not his. Someone checking. Measuring. He didn't say anything to the girls. Didn't want them scared. But he cleaned his rifle anyway, just in case. Because the world doesn't always let good things exist peacefully. Sometimes it tries to crush them just to feel strong. That night, Sarah curled up next to her pony by the fire, half asleep. Mumbling. And Daniel heard her whisper, "Mama." Not loud, just instinct, like her heart decided before her brain could. Pony froze. Daniel did to. The room went still. For a second, Daniel thought she might pull away, correct her, but instead, Pony gently brushed Sarah's hair back. Soft. Careful. Like something precious. And Daniel saw tears slide down her cheeks into the firelight, because maybe she'd lost children too. Maybe someone once called her mother. Maybe chains had stolen that word from her. And now, a little girl gave it back without even trying. Daniel looked away, because some moments are too sacred to watch. But outside, beyond the hills, lanterns flickered in town. Men gathered, whispers growing louder, and somewhere in the dark, trouble was starting to move. Slow. Patient. Like a snake in tall grass. Because not everyone believed an Apache belonged in a white man's home, and not everyone was willing to let this fragile little family exist in peace. And Daniel Harper, he could feel it coming, like thunder before a storm. The storm didn't come with thunder. It came with hoofbeats. Daniel woke before sunrise, like always. Habit. Old ranchers never sleep deep. Not really. Not since wolves, rustlers, and bad memories taught them otherwise. He sat up slowly on the edge of the bed. Listened. Wind brushing the boards, chickens shifting, fire dying low. Normal. Then faint, distant. Rhythmic. Hooves. More than one horse, more than two. Coming fast. Too fast for neighbors, too early for visitors. Daniel's stomach tightened. He'd heard that sound before. War taught you the difference between travelers and men riding with purpose. These were riding with purpose. He stepped onto the porch, cold air biting his face, dawn barely breaking, and there it was. Dust rising from the south trail. 5 riders, maybe 6, silhouettes against the pale sky. Town men, not soldiers. Worse. Soldiers follow orders. Angry men follow feelings, and feelings kill quicker. Behind him, the door creaked. Pony stepped out quietly. She saw the riders. Her whole body stiffened, like a deer catching scent of wolves. Not fear, recognition. She'd seen mobs before. Daniel didn't need language to understand that look. He muttered inside. With the girls, she didn't move, didn't run, just stood beside him. Together. And something about that nearly broke him, because she could have fled, could have disappeared into the hills, but she stayed for his daughters, for this house, for a place that barely existed 2 weeks ago. The riders reached the fence. Hank Miller in front. Of course, big mouth, small heart. To ranch hands with him. Deputy Ross, and 3 others Daniel didn't even know, all armed, all angry. Hank spat into the dirt. Well, I'll be damned. Harper really did it. Daniel didn't answer, just leaned against the porch post. Still. Old trick, never show fear first. Ross spoke. You got a problem, Daniel? Do I? You brought her here. She got a name, Daniel said quietly. Hank laughed. Don't matter what her name is. She's Apache. Daniel felt that old heat rise in his chest, but this wasn't the same anger he used to carry. This one was different. Cleaner. Protective. You come all the way out here just to tell me that? Hank pointed at the cabin. You know what happens when you let Em in? First it's food, then it's knives in your back. Daniel shook his head slowly. She's been feeding my kids. So, in clothes, cleaning this place better than I ever could. That ain't the point. Then what is the point? Nobody answered. Because there wasn't one. Just fear. Old stories, inherited hate, stuff passed down like bad whiskey. Hank's voice got louder. You got daughters, Daniel. You trust her around them? Daniel didn't even hesitate. Yeah, that single word hit the air like a gunshot. The men shifted, confused, because confidence messes with people, especially when they expect doubt. She ain't like you think, Daniel continued. She's just a woman who lost everything, same as me. Hank sneered. She ain't your kind. Daniel looked back at the cabin window. Saw two small faces peeking out. Emily and Sarah. Watching. Scared. He turned back slowly. They're my kind. The men followed his gaze. Saw the girls. And right then the cabin door opened. Emily stepped out first. Then Sarah. And behind them, Apache. The shawl around her shoulders. Hair braided neat. Hands empty. No weapon. No threat. Just standing. Quiet. Calm. The girls grabbed her hands without thinking. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like they'd done it their whole lives. Sarah leaned into her side. Emily squeezed her fingers. And Daniel saw it happen. Right there in front of God and the desert. The picture. Not Cowboy and Apache. Not tribes and towns. Just a mother and two kids. Simple. Human. Obvious. The riders went quiet. Because hate gets real uncomfortable when reality doesn't match the story. She didn't look dangerous. Didn't look savage. She looked tired. Gentle. Protective. Exactly how Mary used to look. And that truth hit harder than any argument. Sarah shouted suddenly. Pa, tell Em she's staying. Daniel blinked. Sarah, she's staying. The little girl yelled again, louder, tears in her eyes. We need her. Emily nodded too. She braids my hair. She cooks. She sings to us. Then the line that broke everything open. She tucks us in like Mama used to. Double quotes. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable silence. Even Hank didn't know what to say. Because how do you argue with kids asking for a mother? How do you tell to little girls they don't deserve someone to love them? Ross cleared his throat. Daniel, town ain't gonna like this. Daniel shrugged. Town ain't the one burying my wife. That hit hard. Town ain't the one hearing my girls cry at night. Nobody moved. Town ain't the one sitting at my table alone every damn day. His voice cracked. Just a little. But she is. He nodded toward Apache. She's there. Every day. He stepped forward. Closer to the fence. So if anyone's got a problem, you talk to me, not her. The wind picked up, dust dancing between boots. Hank stared long and hard. Then finally spat. You always were stubborn, Harper. Yeah. You. Willing to fight over this? Daniel didn't even look at his rifle. Didn't need to. I already am. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just truth. And truth scares angry men more than guns do. Long pause. Then something strange happened. One of the ranch hands shifted in his saddle, looked at the girls, then at Apache, then muttered, Don't look like trouble to me. Another nodded. Double quotes. Yeah. Hell, they look like family. Hank scowled. But the fire was gone. Mob energy dies quick when doubt creeps in. Because mobs need certainty, need someone to hate cleanly. But this was messy. Human. And humans are harder to hate up close. Ross finally sighed. Let's go. Hank protested. But nobody backed him. One by one, they turned their horses, dust rising, anger fading into embarrassment. And just like that, the storm passed. Not with bullets, not with blood, but with something stronger. Truth. When the riders disappeared over the ridge, Daniel's legs nearly gave out. He sat on the porch step hard. hands shaking, adrenaline leaving like water draining from a bucket. Apache stepped beside him, quiet, then did something simple. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Not a thank you. Not words. Just touch. Warm. Real. And Daniel felt something loosen inside his chest. Something that had been tight since Mary died. Like grief finally made space for something else. Something new. That night, they all sat around the fire outside. Stars bright. Desert quiet. Sarah asleep in Apache's lap. Emily leaning against her side. Daniel staring into the flames. Listening. And there it was again. A sound he hadn't heard in forever. Singing. Soft. Low. Abo and I single quotes s. Voice. Not sad. Not mourning. A lullaby. Daniel didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. Safety. Home. Love. He closed his eyes. And for the first time since Mary's death, the house didn't feel broken. It didn't feel empty. It felt whole. Different. But whole. He looked at Apo and I. Then at the girls, then up at the stars, and whispered, "Guess we found our way after all." Apache didn't understand the words, but she smiled anyway. Because sometimes you don't need language. Sometimes you just need someone willing to open a door.